Hello, friends. Welcome back to Film Chewing. We are back from our break, back to the Oscars Project, and today we will be discussing the 1989 Best Picture winner, Driving Miss Daisy. The runners-up that year were Born on the 4th of July, Dead Poet Society, Field of Dreams, and My Left Foot. This is our 30th movie that we've watched with the project, and we are edging out the 80s, running into the 90s. And I always try to start the episode with question. And today won't be too crazy, don't worry, guys. But my question today is looking back. So we're going to finish out the 80s with this movie. Looking back on the movies we discussed for the 80s, do you feel like it represents the culture, kind of pop culture period of the 80s? Does it seem like it fits? If someone were to look at the Best Picture winners and know nothing else, would they have a good idea of the state of the country, state of the world in that decade?
No.
Well,
Okay.
do you know, my initial feeling that is no, but I actually think that's a little unfair. I think it represents the politics and that kind of stuff of the 80s, especially in America, but it doesn't represent cinema of the 80s at all. So things like family values, that kind of stuff, even the impact of Vietnam, all of that kind of stuff as well, viewed for their field, that is sort of very frontline center in American politics, but certainly representative of the 80s film. Like 80s film, especially in Hollywood at that time, was very much escapism. Was the kind of, it was almost like the reaction to Jaws, where the summer blockbuster had hit in 75 and we were sort of living on that kind of thing, that movies were an event that everybody went to escape from real life, and literally none of these films do that. In that, and probably more so than any other decade, that decade was littered with films like that. More so, this was the time of that film, and it's not represented at all.
Yeah, well said. I growing up in the 80s, none of these films were the ones that I remembered from my time growing up in the 80s. And they were all, a lot of them were films I watched much later in life, because I was interested. But they weren't the films I wanted to see as a young man. A teenager and otherwise, in the 80s. And so it's it's interesting that you put it that way, because it did definitely a lot of political statement, a lot of commentary on not so much how the world was in the 80s, but a lot of commentary on some of the history that had already bypassed us, and kind of a re-examining of some of that history. In this film in particular does that as well. It takes place in the 50s, and so it's re-examining viewpoints during that time.
Yeah, looking back on the list, the ones that stick out that kind of feel like they fit, or at least I can understand, was Gandhi. I mean, I think it was a good movie. In terms of endearment, I thought could fit. Platoon, because of the time period after Vietnam and everyone kind of still reeling from that conflict. And Rain Man, only because of Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman, I can see the significance of them pairing up for that role. It kind of fit, kind of feels like it's a big part of the 80s, that movie. But other than that, I mean, it doesn't really reflect the pop culture at the time at all. I mean, the ones that really stick out as sore thumbs, Out of Africa, Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
I mean, that was so, but I can kind of see Amadeus. I think it's a really good movie.
That's a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think Amadeus can fit anywhere.
Yeah.
It's pretty, it's pretty, like that. It's timeless.
Yeah.
Amadeus. So that could fit in any century when it was made,
I mean, I think this year, which was 1989, if I look at the top 10 Hasgrossing films of that year, of the top 10 two were shortlisted in Dead Poet Society and Both the 4th of July. Kind of stealing your thunder a little bit there, Steve, in terms of what's nominated. But everything else, I think, is very representative of that era. Like even Little Mermaid, which was the return to form for associated animation. Ghostbusters 2, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Lethal Weapon 2, Look Who's Talking, Back to the Future 2, Batman, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And I would argue that actually a lot of there's not really a bad movie even amongst that. It's not even that it's not highbrow. They're all very good movies. They've stood the test of time. A lot of those films in ways that these other films haven't. And I often think, sometimes films get highlighted that just didn't hit their market at the time and come along later. That could be a thing that the Oscars can try and do and kind of say, look, this film was actually great and it missed the box office and we're kind of rewarding it. But a lot of these films didn't and never found their audience in the same level. So again, it comes back to one of the things that I think we talked about very early on about how much the Oscars is representative of the film going public or the people that would go to watch it. And I think you can sort of look at the dwindling or falling importance of the Oscars and on cinema rather than having a glitzy night in March. But aside from that, they're not really the beacon of what great cinema is in the way that they sort of purport to be.
I'll never get over Born on the 4th of July not winning Best Picture this year. Out of the nominees.
Of the nominees, yeah. I mean, I would say that one of the greatest films of all time came out this year and wasn't even nominated, which was Do the Right Thing. But in the flip side of that, though, I would say that actually Driving Miss Daisy is the exact opposite end of the scale of how you do that film. Because Driving Miss Daisy, without kind of jumping too far in, is a drive-by shooting, but depth and getting in the depth of none of the issues that Do the Right Thing does, and does it very hard hitting in some ways. So it's almost like the much more palatable, easy version of that, rather than kind of drawing a light to Spike Lee's kind of masterpiece, But yeah, Do the Right. Born on the 4th of July of these ones, I think, does stick out from the nominees for sure. Even Glory was out this year, which I love. The American Civil War film as well. I love Glory. Oh man, so good. Such an impactful ending. And again, talks about similar themes, again, but does it in a much more meaningful way.
Yeah, I feel like culturally, for cultural significance, I think Do the Right Thing would probably be the one at the top of the list. And then we'd go down to, Glory, Born on the 4th of July, but maybe they didn't want to do more than one war movie in a decade. And
absolutely.
Within a few years, so. But I also think this movie touched on some cultural and race topics that, like you said, were handled much more subtly than they would be, or they were, and Do the Right Thing. So you can kind of, looking back on the 80s, you can kind of see those topics being explored a little bit more. Just not very, it's not forward. It's there, but it's not as forward as it gets later. But so Driving Miss Daisy, I remember seeing this in the theater when I was a wee lad.
Not really.
And it was a tough watch.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not. Tough watch. That's definitely the wrong time to watch that. Yeah.
I don't know how I sat through this movie. I must have had a big bucket of popcorn, but yeah, it was a tough watch. It was not. It seemed very. The soundtrack I thought was a good soundtrack, but it was the same thing over and over again. And I feel like it tried to put this lightness, this comedy on this movie that I think could have taken itself a little bit more seriously. But I do appreciate the broad appeal it has too. But yeah, it was a tough one for me.
Did that toughness change on this viewing?
No, it was worse. It was. I had to break it up into a couple viewings. It just felt very, very slow. It's really about Hoke and Daisy and the time period that they're in, how we age, how we lose our independence instead of gain our independence. So I think there's some powerful themes being explored here, but there's not a whole lot to. There's not like as far as characters go. It's it feels a little light.
I think that's exactly my takeaway as well, Steve. In some ways, like I sort of find myself frustrated with it because it does start to go down some very powerful ideas and kind of themes. Again, themes that are not always explored, but it just does it in such a cursory manner that you sort of come away feeling that it's very twee, which, given the kind of, even the fact that she's Jewish, and with the black man, the kind of stages of class within society and the prejudice, different levels of prejudice that people would get, I think there's the opportunity there to make a really powerful film and still have it feel quite light in terms of, what you want to do. I just think the memorable scenes from this are not memorable enough. In fact, I would argue that the most memorable scene in the whole film is about a tin of salmon. And not in its own way, given the other things that are happening around it, because Martin Luther King makes an appearance and that kind of stuff. I mean, I think that's quite a good scene, but very lightly dealt with, and so no real consequences to anybody's actions within the film at all, even minorly. So it kind of comes away with this feeling that none of that really matters in some ways, which, yeah, it's not this film's fault that it won Best Picture. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of thing. I don't think it ever represented itself to try and be that film at the outset. Maybe it caught fire later on. So you've just got to judge it on its own merits, and it's a fine film. It's the most 3 out of 5 film I think you'll probably ever see in your life. There's nothing really bad about it. It's well made. It's got interesting characters. It's got good performances. The editing I do think is excellent in it, and I think it has some good messaging. So there's a lot to like. It's up against a lot of powerhouse kind of films that year that did or did not receive the recognition. Like even My Left Foot is an incredibly powerful film, and I don't know how you watch those films and then come away and go, do you know what? Driving Miss Daisy was the one that really made me feel something. It's it's of all years, like Born the 4th of July, My Left Foot, Glory. You do that. How do you? Oh my! What? How do you come away and go? That's the film that made me feel something. That's just crazy.
Yeah, it's like I remember powerful stuff from Glory that like sticks in my mind still has from, like, I watched it a long time ago and it still resonates. Like certain scenes in that film still stick in my mind because of Denzel Washington's performance and the rest of this, and the same thing with even Dead Poet Society.
Yeah.
I still remember stuff from that film.
Emotional, yeah.
That was like, wow, I remember that scene, and yeah, but talking about this film, there's some good stuff in here. There is some good stuff in the film, and one of the things I really liked in the opening was when she's looking into the camera, and it's kind of like a reflection of self, and it kind of asked a question. I asked myself, like, what does she see at the beginning of the film as opposed to later on in the film? When she's looking at the camera and looking at doing that self-reflection. And I think that was the main thing that you had to keep in mind as going through the film. And I think it was a pretty good, like you said, character piece, as far as watching this. I don't remember her name. Daisy, is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Watching Daisy's transformation, going through the.
I mean, Jared, I've got to say, the fact that you couldn't remember her name is Daisy and the film's called Driving Miss Daisy is probably the biggest indictment of this film I can think of. I mean, I understand. I actually had to pause myself. It was not. Sorry.
Yeah, right. You're so right. But I think the main thing that the main conflict that that introduces itself is her losing control. She has a fear of losing control. Of course, she can't. Her son doesn't want her to drive anymore because of the accident and stuff, and so that is like a loss of control over your own life, and the changes that come with aging continue on throughout the film, and so that is something that at the end you kind of see she's also losing control of she might be coming down with a little case of dementia or what have you, and so that's also another loss of control aspect to the film. And so I thought that was pretty well done, that those little subtle touches to her character.
So she has a lot. She has a lot of. She evolves,
Yeah.
but she it takes her 95% of the film to evolve, and she's a complete asshole for most of this movie. And I wondered, does she become appreciative of Hoke and all that he's done for her because she's nearing the end of life? Is that because maybe she has a case of dementia, or is it genuine? Because it seemed like I'm on the edge of death. By the way, you're my best friend. Thank you for all the good things you've done for me over the last decades. And sorry, I've been a complete jerk to you the whole time.
She's complete jerk to everybody, though. I mean, that's just her demeanor. She is a matriarch who is very demanding of people, if I'm going to put it very nicely. Like, she's very judgmental of her husband, but also, I think quite rightly, of the husband's wife. It's just an absolute monster of the last order. Like, there's no getting around that one. So I think that's who she is. I just think as she gets older and realizes she's more vulnerable, I think she is more open to the fact that she needs other people. She needed other people. I mean, Hoke drove for 25 years or something, and for 20 of those years, I think she thought she didn't need a driver. She could have done it herself and that kind of stuff. Something like that. She didn't need people. She still felt strong and in control of herself, and she didn't like this reliance on other people. And it was only at the end that I think she takes stock and kind of realizes, well, I couldn't have done all of those things beforehand. The big mystery to me is how Dan Aykroyd was her son, because they don't share any of the same kind of upbringing or thing. He's almost the character opposite of her in terms of temperament and the way that he deals with people. So I think that part was definitely interesting, the contrast.
Yeah, it took her a long time to loosen up. And I like how they aged everybody. And Morgan Freeman looks the same today as he did in that movie.
In the film, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. That's so funny.
He doesn't age.
Yeah. And it was subtle aging, because again, the appearance at the start is that Jessica Tandy's character Daisy is already an old woman. You know what I mean? She's probably not as old as her sort of appearance at the start. So kind of, it's only at the very end of the film that there's a noticeable difference, and mainly because she has her hair down and it's a bit wider, rather than necessarily a great difference in that regard. So it sort of starts with this idea that it is an end of life drama, but there's a long time that passes before that comes, and I think Varsa talked about it in the discussion we had yesterday. It's a film about dignity in an awful lot of ways, and dignity of sort of everybody, like Hoke's dignity, her dignity, even Florine's dignity, Uncle Warren's dignity. Everybody's sort of about how you dress and cope with that, and the individual and kind of the responsibilities that each person has in that regard. And I think in that regard it does that quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then you have it's about dignity, but she also doesn't. She has to come around to that when it comes to the dignity of other people. You can sit there and look at, she's losing her own sense of dignity, her own sense of control over her own life, but at the same time, she's not granting that same level of dignity and control to other people around her until much later. And you get little hints that it could be there along the way. You get the because she does eventually want to go see what all this MLK stuff is about, and she wants to actually she actually wants to see what he says, and she wants to explore that avenue. And um and that she did that on her own for the most part. And she doesn't because at the beginning of the movie, she's like worried about him stealing stuff, and she's worried about he can't read, but then she goes to the extra mile to teach him, and so there is something beneath there, that veneer of standoffishness and assholery, as Steve put it. There is something beneath that veneer that wants to be a better person, but doesn't initially project it.
I could also see this signifying the end of that era. The wouldn't be the boomers; it'd be the period before that, maybe, of that generation kind of passing, and the people with those kind of perceptions and opinions dying off, and it's becoming a new era with this in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, changing of it's a changing of the guard. I mean, 60s was this birth of a lot of change throughout the Western culture anyway, and the kind of rise of the next generation, even the one after Dan Aykroyd's character, kind of taking control of politics and that kind of stuff at that stage. So yeah, it's a period piece, but without it necessarily feeling overly period, if you know what I mean. Aside from the cars and that kind of stuff, it could sort of be set at any time, in terms of where they are. One of the things that I did like actually was, obviously it's set in Atlanta mainly, but when they travel throughout other parts of Georgia, etc., how more extreme the views and the prejudice would become even within that state, which I thought was a kind of an interesting dynamic, especially when, like I said, I just pointed out, she's Jewish as well and received her own prejudice because of that part. But I thought that was a really nice kind of light to shine on the story as well.
Yeah. What did you think about the part where she had to hide her Jewishness? She had to pass herself off as German in order to get out of a kind of sticky situation, with the classic pullover scene.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I say, I'm glad. Go ahead.
Oh, it is kind of asserts a higher level of awareness than you might have otherwise granted to her.
Mm-hmm.
That situation.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was going to say as well, is that she's well aware of, actually, for all her curmudgeonliness and all the rest of it, she is very well aware of the social order and how things go, and in fact, I think that's very much where the whole when Hoke calls her out basically on the fact that he didn't get invited to the MLK dinner until he was the thing, she was just observing the social status at the time, I think, in that regard, and not really seeing the error in that, even though obviously Hope, very nice about it, points it out to her and stuff. He can kind of see, actually, there's still some way for you to go in terms of the way that you should be thinking, etc. Even though she's going to the Martin Luther King dinner, and she's kind of taking that step, her adjustment to social society and the norms within it is still some development to go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She won best actress for.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I mean,
it's good.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad. It just surprised me a little. I'd have to look more at the list of other contenders that year, but
Yeah, haven't seen too many of the other ones looking at the contenders, but Isabella Johnny was up, and Isabella Johnny's incredible. I have never seen Camille Claudel, but pick any movie from Isabella Johnny, and she's awesome.
Yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer,
Yeah, Public Speaker Boys. Yeah,
Jessica Lange.
Indeed.
She was the oldest best actress winner that year at age 80.
wow. It's a fine performance. Like most of the rest of the film, it's sort of understated. In some regards, the film's very kind of mute in that way as well. So maybe it makes sense. It's not like Jesse Bucky or anything this year for Hamlet, where you just look at it and go, "Well, that's extraordinary." Like that's the most certain I've ever been that somebody's going to win an award in my life after seeing that performance. It's kind of like, but the film knows it, and it kind of puts that forward. Like the whole last half hour of that movie is her face. Because the film knows what it is. So I think, Jessica Tandy's performance sort of fits the movie, and that kind of understated, sort of glances and kind of looking up and observing the world around her in some ways, and then having the emotional break sort of towards the end from a bit of an asshole to slightly less of an asshole.
True. And Hoke is the most patient man to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. The movie doesn't work if Hoke is not patient. Because you can definitely see that going downhill fast if he's not. Yeah, the like all around, I think the performances were good in the film. They were very, all the characters were very believable, and because like in contrast, Rain Man, Tom Cruise yelling the whole movie was annoying, and
true.
I had a hard time taking that one, but the as much as I like Dustin Hoffman's performance, but in this movie it was definitely like it everything fit, as far as the movie and the performances and all that stuff. There wasn't anything that was egregious or anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tom Cruise yelling. I mean, it's pretty much his entire career.
Running and yelling.
Yeah.
running and yelling.
And hanging out to planes.
Yeah.
Not to get too off topic, but his best roles were his more dramatic roles, like Magnolia, Vanilla Sky. He does a fair amount of running in Vanilla Sky too.
He does. Well, he runs in everything. I mean, that's got to be in the contract, I would imagine. How much running am I going to have to do? Camera must be pointed straight on, looking at me, etc. Yeah, I would agree. Those are his best performances as well. It's almost a bit of a shame that he didn't get more opportunity. Eyes Wide Shut would be another one, I suppose.
Eyes Wide Shut. But yeah, so I mean, Driving Miss Daisy it's okay. I mean, I don't know. It's
there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing about it that rises above being nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to have strong opinions about it. It's just it was fine.
It's a funny one because I feel like if it had been one of those films that had received no acclaim whatsoever, and then you watched it much later in life and kind of watched it, you kind of go, well, that seems pretty good, for not the film that I haven't heard of, etc. It's almost like a step above a Lifetime, like a Hallmark Lifetime movie in some aspects. It's got very similar kind of beats and tone, but much more polished with better acting and sort of not as dramatic. That doesn't have the melodrama of any of that. In fact, it doesn't steer into melodrama kind of at all, aside from that one moment, "You're my best friend." That's pretty much the only moment, and it only works because it steps outside itself in doing that. The rest of it's kind of emotionless for a lot of the film. So it's like, yeah, okay, that sort of works in that regard. So yeah, the scene I did like actually that they included and wrote in it was Hoke getting his pay rise. I thought that'd give him his character another level and that kind of agency. I think that's really important to say that he wasn't just a pushover. He wasn't just somebody that kind of was subservient the whole way. He was his own man, his own character, and he had his own kind of ideals and lives. And actually, that view into his life through his granddaughter, being the doctor or the teacher or something,
Yeah.
was important. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he was a pushover even before, because he had to be talked into taking this job.
That's true.
It wasn't like, yes, sir, I'm going to take it, and then he did definitely push back against Daisy, on a couple of occasions, and which were a few turning points in the film, in the character building and stuff. And so I think that made sense that when he got his raise, that he would actually fight for a little more.
Yeah, I mean,
It'd be interesting to watch in the coming years here, the Green Mile. Is it Green? No, that's a Green Mile. The Green Book.
Green Book.
Green Book.
Almost in setup is nearly an identical film.
Yeah, because that was the knock against it was just a cop, just another version of Driving Miss Daisy, and so it's going to be interesting to watch that again.
Yeah, I think it's a little more hard hitting. I think it goes for it a little bit more in terms of that, but it is remarkable how setup of those two films are so similar.
Yeah. So that'll be that did win Best Picture, right?
It did. Green Book did. Yes, it did. Yeah.
So that'll be interesting when we ever get to that, and to look back and compare and contrast and stuff.
Yeah.
So looking back, where does this fit on the list on your ranking for the Best Picture winners so far?
It's a 22 for me, or 23 maybe, something like that. Yeah.
It's down in the 20s for me. Yeah, it's in the 20s. Yeah. So it did crack my top 20.
Yeah, it's about the same for me.
It's too inoffensive to be anywhere near the bottom, if you know what I mean. Because some of those films angered me with their length or something like that. This was only an hour and a half, so it didn't engender enough vitriol in me to ever consider it to be that low, but it also doesn't do very much to kind of push it far up the list.
That's fair.
The like the bottom three for me engender that vitriol you're talking about, and then the like the next two, I was just bored out of my mind, and then then you got the rest that just didn't quite make the top 20.
All right, so rounding out the 80s, heading into the 90s, and the Best Picture winner of 1990 was Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
It beat out Goodfellas.
Oh, that's tough.
And while I remember enjoying Dances with Wolves the last time I saw it, which is probably 20 years ago, it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be tough to be convinced that this should have won over Goodfellas.
I seen Dances with Wolves in the cinema. So you've seen this in the cinema, I've seen this. Yeah. I've seen Dances with Wolves in the cinema, and I will say that a lot of people walked out of it in the cinema of my age group. Yeah.
It's
a long movie.
Intermission, and I remember having an intermission. But
that's interesting. I did like it when I remember liking it when I did see it.
but I've seen Goodfellas like 5-6 times. So
I've
really
only ever
love
watched it
Goodfellas.
once past that, and I will warn you now, I'm a bit of a Kevin Costner stan, maybe even more so than Tom Cruise. I like a lot of Costner movies, even the ones that aren't good.
I don't expect it to be bad. I think it'll be. It's going. I expect it to be good.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be tough to say this. Okay, this I can see why this won over Goodfellas, but maybe it will. I'm open to it.
Yeah.
Goodfellas is one of the best movies. I mean, could we say it's one of the best movies ever made? Is it in the conversation?
You can say that, it's your list.
No, I mean, is that an outrageous thing to say? I think it's
No, I don't think so. I think it's a very good movie in my eyes. It's not. Yeah, it's not in the pantheon of the greatest movies for me, but it is very enjoyable. It's extremely watchable. It's incredibly entertaining, and that might be all the words to not describe Dances with Wolves now to think about it. For all of its good qualities are not those things.
and we are back to long movies again after having a bit of a break in the 80s from the
we did.
to the long movies. We're back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. Well, any other thoughts on Driving Miss Daisy before we finish out the 80s?
No, that's all.
No, I mean, I'm glad I saw it because I'd never seen it before. So I'm glad I finally did see it, you know. But I'm good. You know, I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Yeah, so next time we'll be discussing Dances with Wolves and starting the 90s.
Yeah.
Get in.
Yeah.
The heydays.
Looking ahead at the 90s, we have a couple of, Silence of the Lambs, Unforgiven, Schindler's List, Forrest Gump, Braveheart, The English Patient, Titanic, Shakespeare in Love, and American Beauty.
Some good ones coming up.
You think
Some bad
1989 was a travesty? Shakespeare in Love over Saving Private Ryan? Really?
I would like to revisit that. I don't hate Shakespeare in Love like other people seem to have vitriol.
I didn't hate it either. It's just
I liked it.
Saving
Yeah.
Private Ryan.
Saving Private Ryan's pretty good.
There's
That's
two
pretty
World War
good.
II films in the 80s now or the
That's
90s
right.
now that I
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan. We had the other film I just
Schindler's
mentioned. I forgot.
Schindler's
Schindler's
List
List.
is,
Right.
Um,
Oh, interesting.
interesting revisiting, I think, a lot of these films, because like I think we said this before, these are a lot of films that I've seen multiple times. You know, these are films that I'm very familiar with in terms of reappraising them, whereas a lot of the films I've watched before this have been, if not first time watches, second time watches. You know, not the things that I've seen multiple times. So these are films that have undergone reappraisal in my mind before. So that'll be interesting to see.
And yeah, well, you're a Kevin Costner stan. I am a Braveheart hater. So if Braveheart has no haters, it's because I'm dead.
I don't think it's very good.
I don't think it's good at all, and I just think it's But we'll get there. A few weeks.
Pop culture history.
I'm not a fan of Braveheart at all.
The film the year before it is an even worse film in my view, but there you go. We'll get to that.
The soundtrack for Braveheart is amazing.
Yeah.
The movie sucks. But we'll get there.
We'll get there in a couple of years.
Yeah, a few weeks. Anyway, so until next time, Jared, where can people find you?
You can find me at the Fancy Thinker YouTube channel. You can find me on the Page Chewing forums, and you can find me on the podcast Speculative Speculations.
And Chris?
Yeah, similarly, you can find me in Speculative Speculations. You can find me on the Page Chewing forums and at my YouTube channel at just my name, Chris Moen.
Nice. And of course, find me on pagechewing.com. Check out our articles and join our forum to join the discussions there. And let us know your thoughts on Driving Miss Daisy or any other movie we've discussed. So until next time, we'll see you in the 90s.
Nice.